offshore wind, solar. Dominion Energy is a leader in the clean energy transition. We're dedicated to providing reliable, affordable, safe, and clean energy as we support and invest in our communities. Dominion Energy is building a clean energy future. Actions speak louder. Welcome to Actions Speak Louder, highlighting Dominion Energy's clean energy projects and community support. I'm Peggy Fox, Dominion Energy Media and Community Relations Manager. We are building a clean energy future with a massive expansion of clean energy that includes offshore wind, solar, and battery storage. Recently, Dominion Energy Virginia celebrated the opening of its largest battery storage pilot project, which is right next to a large solar facility. Why is this such a big deal? Here's Dominion Energy Virginia President Ed Bain to explain.
Yeah, so if you think about, just start with solar in particular, it doesn't produce electricity when the sun doesn't shine, right? Or at night or cloud cover. And so in order to produce electricity or put electricity on the grid, we need to store that energy when it is produced. And so batteries play a vital role in that. And you know, we're in the leading edge on some of the technology, but we're looking at other technologies as well, because we will need longer duration energy storage as we go forward.
The batteries here are what we call 4-hour duration batteries, right? So when we charge these batteries, roughly 12 megawatts of batteries, what it allows us to do is, right now, while the sun is shining, it allows us to charge those batteries. And let's say later this evening, right, when when the sun goes down, we've got the opportunity to then dissipate the energy in the batteries. So in essence, we're capturing, right, the energy from the sun. We're able to charge the batteries with it, and then use that same renewable energy when the sun is down, right, to serve our customers.
And with me here in studio is Eric Connor, Manager of Construction and Infrastructure Projects. Eric, thanks so much for coming in today.
Absolutely.
So first, this is your project,
Yes.
the battery storage project. You call it BESS. We love acronyms.
We do.
At Dominion Energy.
We do.
And tell us what BESS stands for.
Battery Energy Storage System.
Okay.
So there are multiple kinds of energy storage, but this is batteries.
And how big is it?
This pilot that we're talking about today at the Scott 1 solar facility was a 12 megawatt pilot, 4-hour system, so 48 megawatt hours, 12 times 4.
And it's in Powhatan.
It's in Powhatan, just west of Richmond, so easy to get to, and a place that we can highlight and showcase energy storage.
Talking about battery storage isn't as exciting as talking about solar projects, but it's essential. The two go hand in hand. So explain that.
I would argue that, though.
Oh, not true?
Energy
Okay.
storage is exciting. It's the next wave. It's the
Yes.
next wave of renewable and storage and how we're transforming our grid. So we do own and run a large portfolio of solar and energy storage. We have goals to reach 3,000 megawatts over the next decade and a half.
Of storage.
And that's paired with our energy goals or renewable goals that we have for solar as well.
Yeah.
So they're going to run hand in hand. The pilot was at a existing solar facility, as we said, bolted onto a retrofit, but we're looking now at new projects that will combine solar and storage from the initial design, which is exciting.
So every time we build solar, we'll have battery storage?
Not every time.
Not every time.
Right, but it's going to become more common.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How long were you planning this project?
So I started working on it in 2018, about the time I got to Dominion. Joined about 5 years ago, right? And energy storage was just being talked about. The Grid Transformation and Securities Act was passed in 2018 that allowed for up to 30 megawatts of energy storage. So we had to find someone that was interested in doing that, and I guess I fit the bill. So working with our business development counterparts at the time, and we went off on finding where and how large and what could we do for energy storage.
Well, Eric, Dominion Energy's mission is to provide safe, reliable energy. Why battery storage? How does that fit into that mission?
Yeah, and safe and reliable, and we want the grid to be reliable as a whole. And so energy storage fits in because solar isn't always generating, and offshore wind, which is a huge program our project construction group is doing as well, isn't necessarily always going to blow at the same rate. So energy storage comes in because we can capture that solar and renewable energy at a time that might not be needed on the grid, and we can save it and dispatch it at a later time.
So in general, are solar facilities producing more energy than can be used when they're producing it?
I wouldn't say that more than they can be used, because typically if solar's producing, it's going to be cheaper than firing up a gas turbine, for example. After the capital cost the ongoing maintenance costs are a lot less than burning gas.
Because the sun is free.
Right, exactly. So in a dispatch model, it's going to get selected for dispatch before other assets that cost more money will. And as we look at energy storage paired with that, it again is going to, if it's being fueled by a renewable resource that's free, so to speak, it's going to be dispatched as well before firing up some of our existing fleet.
How much, so you just said that, you said 4 hours, so there's a limit to how much battery storage, and talk a little bit about that limit. Why is there a limit?
Yeah, sure. So 4 hours is really where the industry is right now. There's a lot of emerging technologies that are looking to push the boundaries on that. We've heard of developers that have up to 100 megawatt hours of 100-hour storage duration, which is hard to imagine, but there's a lot of R&D money going into this space. It's primarily driven by electric vehicles as it started, but now we're starting to see that transfer into the utility sector.
So what other battery storage systems do we have?
We have, this was one of 3 that were approved by the State Corporation Commission. Again, we talked about it being the largest. We had 2 other pilots that were implemented on the transmission distribution side that were smaller 2 megawatt, 2-hour systems. So that you can go all the way down to a half-hour system if you want. It's just really, batteries come into our fleet and solve a solution for a specific problem. And so the 2 pilots that the transmission side did were solving different problems than what our battery pilot at Scott was trying to solve.
Are there different kinds? I guess I imagine these are different kinds of batteries when you...
Yeah, they're modeled differently. They're constructed on their controls philosophy differently, and how you're going to use and dispatch them. We call it a use case. So what is your use case? Do you want to charge 4 hours during the day and discharge 4 hours at night? Or do you want to cycle the batteries multiple times throughout the day? Depending on, again, what type of problem you're trying to solve, we would go into the design with that in mind to optimize that battery system.
Where are batteries made?
Mainly overseas, international, like our solar fleet had started mainly coming from China, Japan, and other countries over there. But we are seeing an interest spike on energy storage as it's becoming more common in the utility sector. There's a lot of energy storage going on out west as we follow. I've heard Virginia be called the California of the East. And so our solar program follows that. Energy storage really started out west. We're starting to see it come more to the east. And we are just one of a handful of major utilities that are seeking energy storage. So some developers are taking it to North American production as well.
Well, you talked about some of the laws that are in place now that helps us reach our goals. And I know we, in addition to providing safe, reliable, affordable, and increasingly clean energy, we also want to be the most sustainable energy company. And we have a lot of different projects that we're doing, not just the solar that you mentioned, but also offshore wind.
Right. Yeah. Our project construction group oversees all of those. CCR, coal residual projects, we're trying to clean up a lot of the coal plants that we have. Offshore wind as a renewable resource. Gas turbines are still in the mix. We still need those because they are fully dispatchable 24 hours a day, unlike a battery that might drain after the 4 hours. So
and
all of it
we
plays
need those because we have to have reliable energy.
We do. We have to keep the grid up. When people want their lights to come on when they hit the switch, and that's the bottom line.
But we are changing as quickly as we can.
We are adapting as quickly as we can. And I say it's a lot like what your financial advisor tells you to diversify your portfolio. And that's what we're trying to do with our energy fleet.
It's exciting times. So how fast has battery technology changed over the recent years?
I compare that to the Apple iPhone because we are testing models right now that by the time they come out of testing and into production, the next generation is already out. I mean, it is literally evolving that fast, which is exciting. They're getting more dense. The energy storage systems, like we talked about, are getting longer duration. They're getting more nimble, and how you can use those use cases, and it's really advancing with the R&D going into it.
And that's a really good example because we all have
We do.
smartphones.
We do.
And we see how things have changed so quickly, you know, in the palm of our hands. I remember when there wasn't an iPhone.
That's right.
When there wasn't an internet, you know, and we're living in a really interesting, incredible time in terms of technology and also cleaning up our planet.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's coming in the future?
For energy storage in
Yeah,
general.
energy
Storage, we have, again, we talked about the 30 megawatt pilot
Yes.
that was kind of approved through that Grid Transformation Act. So we still have some megawatts left in that we are piloting new technologies that are non-lithium ion based. So the first 3 pilots that we set out were what the EV industry brought to us through lithium ion cells. Is the same thing you're going to find in your Tesla car. And those are advancing to different types of chemistries, sodium ion, NMC, different types of technologies and chemistries that have, again, different use cases depending on the problem you're trying to solve. Other things we're doing on the renewable fleet within project construction in my group, we have a hydrogen bus program that we're working with the SARTA Transit Authority in Ohio. So that's exciting. They already have a fleet of hydrogen buses, and they're looking for a fueling station. So that is not driven off of diesel. So it's much cleaner.
Explain, since we're talking about it, tell us about hydrogen buses. How do they work?
Right, so it's an alternative fuel, and we're also looking at blending hydrogen in some of our gas turbines, actually. Some of those turbines that we have in our existing fleet have the capability to burn hydrogen up to a certain extent without major modifications to some of the components. So again, we're trying to pilot things that would clean the emissions and give us our alternative fueling sources in addition to pipeline natural gas.
How do, I've done, we have a lot of electric buses that we've provided to the school systems up here in Northern Virginia, 8 to Fairfax County, 5 I think to Alexandria and Loudoun County. What in terms of clean running systems, how do electric buses compare with hydrogen buses?
I would say relatively close. Electric buses, of course, are going to need to go and charge like your cars do. The thing that hydrogen buses put out is heat and water. That's the emission source. And so on the surface, that's obviously much better than diesel engines. Now, the fact that we have to build an infrastructure to be able to refuel these buses is what we're working on in that pilot program out in Ohio. And so I could see, you know, a vehicle fleet, we're shifting to electric vehicles, as you mentioned, on buses and commercial vehicles. It's becoming more common. Hydrogen may be something that is being looked at by other manufacturers in the industry as well.
So I know that Dominion Energy has the second, is number 2 when it comes to solar for a utility, which is incredible. I mean, think about how far Dominion Energy has come in just, what, 5, 10 years? And where do we stand with battery storage?
Yes, so our solar team is hot and heavy day in and day out, and the energy storage team is starting to grow. So we're seeing it follow the same trend. And as I said, how we see California started with solar, went to energy storage, the West Coast, East Coast doing that. In our energy storage, we're just starting at the baby step with the pilot program, as we talked about. But obviously looking to continue to grow that and look for opportunities in the future.
Well,
our neighbors in North Carolina, Duke, have programs similar, and we constantly communicate with them on who's best in the industry, how their use cases are working out, what they're seeing for the operational profiles and maintenance programs, just so we can learn from one another and grow the industry.
That's fantastic. And we have got the largest offshore wind project under development right now.
We do.
Which is very exciting. We have 2 turbines. You say turbines, I say turbines. Both are correct, right?
Tomato, tomato.
But yeah, if you're in Richmond, you say turbines. I'm in Northern Virginia, I say turbines. But I've been out to see them.
Have you?
I did. You've not?
I need to get on that list.
You've got to get on that list.
I do.
No, I can't get back on a boat. I went before they started producing energy.
Yes.
Now they're spinning and actually delivering clean energy to the grid.
They are.
Yeah.
And they are operating very well.
And they're a pilot project,
they are
2
pilot.
turbines out there.
And you see what the subsequent of that pilot project has turned into a $10 billion program of offshore wind. We're not there with energy storage yet, but again, same concept, that we have a pilot to go and improve the concept and take all those lessons learned so we can do it at scale.
So you have an extensive background in designing and constructing power plants. When did you start focusing on battery storage?
About the time I came to Dominion. So my history with the power plant took me from Bear Garden, Brunswick County, Greensville County, which were our large combined cycles in the state of Virginia, as we really looked to satisfy the demand that was in the state of Virginia. And we were a large importer of power 10 years ago. So we have now satisfied that need, and we're looking to, the industry in general has kind of gone away from combined cycles now because we're finding other ways to serve the load and the growth that we're seeing through cleaner methods.
A lot of solar. What does the law say about how much solar we need to build?
We need to build 15 gigawatts of solar.
You see more and more solar panels on roofs these days, and I know we have partnerships with solar on schools up here in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
And
yes.
that's really exciting, and we're hoping to grow that. So you've talked about hydrogen. Can you talk to us, since you have an extensive background? You're an engineer?
I'm a structural engineer by trade. I haven't stamped a drawing in many years.
Talk to us a little bit about some other form of clean energy that we hear about is small nuclear reactors.
Yes.
Talk to us about that and what the future might hold there.
Yes, SMRs are becoming a more common acronym. We talk about those. Interestingly enough, the hydrogen buses, steam methane reformation, is also the SMR acronym. So make sure you know what you're reading when you're talking about SMRs. But SMRs in the nuclear space are just what they sound like, smaller than the large scale North Anna, Summer, Surrey, those plants that are been operating for 50 plus years, right? These are on a smaller scale, so a lot less megawatts. They're more modular plug and play. And so we're looking at where can those fit into the fleet as well. And so we've been looking at existing sites in Virginia, looking at how long the permit cycles are going to take, and how we can get SMRs to be a part of our diverse portfolio and fleet as, of course, a clean energy.
Now, I'm sure to do nuclear, there's so many regulations and hurdles that you have to cross before you get anywhere close to.
Small scale or large scale,
Right.
the red tape is the same.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking maybe the small ones wouldn't be as, you don't need as much land.
You don't need as much land, the footprint is smaller, but the way they are, there's a couple providers of SMRs, those are really not even in production in the U.S.
Let's go back and talk about rooftop solar because when we were talking about the amount of solar that needs to be built, I mean, the first thing people say to me is they think rooftop solar, because many people have not seen a utility scale solar facility up close.
Right.
Maybe they've seen it, driving a car, you see them off in the distance, but so people think about their homes. And do you think that will become more accessible for people in terms of cost?
Rooftop, yeah, I do. And I think that's a lot of what, again, I relate solar and energy storage together, because we saw declining curves on solar panels as the industry grew. Of course, more production, bulk buy opportunities, and people could make better margins at a smaller scale. Energy storage is going to follow that, and I think with what we're seeing even in my neighborhood for residential, when there was 1 or 2 players in the space, now there's probably 8 or 10 options that residential customers have for solar.
And Dominion Energy has its own subsidiary called BrightSuite.
Yes.
And I would just like to put a plug in there because, it's always a good idea, no matter who you're going with, to get a second opinion.
Absolutely.
And to check it out and find out. You don't just want to go with one company, and you can always find out what another company is going to tell you.
Yeah, shop around, right?
Right.
Just like you do for vehicles.
What other questions would people need to ask if they're considering rooftop solar for their house or business?
People often ask, well, what about when it's a cloudy day? Your solar panel is still producing some power. It's not at the optimal level that it is on a non-cloudy day. If it's covered in snow, what happens if they get dusty? So those things were questions that we asked through the process, and when we look at our fleet in Virginia, it's the same questions that we ask on a utility space. And the benefit of the Virginia weather cycle is that they basically self-clean, and we don't get a ton of snow, so that's not quite as big of a deal. But they are hampered when you have those things that are blocking the sun rays from hitting. But looking at it on an annual scale is really the question you probably want to ask.
And so we're talking about battery storage as well. Can people get battery storage systems in their own homes if they have solar?
They can. They can, I won't say get off the grid, but having a backup source at your house like you do your propane generators. Tesla makes what they call a power wall. So that's the residential version. It was offered to me. The price point was too high, to your point. But I think that'll come down over time.
Do you have Tesla panels?
I do not.
Okay. All right. Not going to get into it. That's fine. What other exciting things are in the future for clean energy and battery storage?
I talked about the continuation of the pilot. So we have 3 new type of providers that we're going to seek at one of our existing facilities. So that's obviously exciting. We're seeing some offshore wind off the coast of Jersey and New York upstate. Those are not Dominion-owned projects, but when we look at trying to solve the problem for the grid and the whole United States, I think that's exciting.
Well, our pilot project is really serving as sort of a roadmap for all of the offshore wind, isn't it, along the Atlantic?
There are a lot of eyes on how those turbines are performing, how they were installed, what type of operations and maintenance issues that we're learning from those. Absolutely. And as you know, Dominion's building the first Jones compliant installation vessel down in Brownsville, Texas. So we've got that going on. We actually will lease it out to another entity to go construct their turbines before we get into that full phase build out.
And the reason, I mean, there are other countries that have offshore wind are far more advanced than us, and that's how we were able to start because there was this hindrance called the Jones Act, right?
That's right.
Explain that for me.
And so I can't explain the whole Jones Act. We'll get into that. But from a high level, you can't have a foreign international vessel come do work in what would be a United States territory.
And there were no offshore wind installation vessels.
There weren't, not in the U.S., right? So that's why I mentioned we're building the first one. For the pilots, we did bring a vessel overseas, but you could imagine how complicated that would make shipping and logistics if you had to do that with a full build out. So we're excited about that. It's going to be really neat to see come to life.
Truly an exciting time to be in the energy business, and if you're interested in energy, to be on board with all of this clean energy that's coming and to be excited about it and help us move it forward.
Yes, absolutely. And if anybody's interested, we're always hiring. So I know the offshore wind team has many hiring positions, and our team's growing for renewable energy storage. Like I said, the gas turbines are going to play into that mix as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on, Eric, and sharing all your knowledge, not all your knowledge, some knowledge that you have, and talking about your battery storage projects going on. It's a very exciting time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And thank you for watching Actions Speak Louder. We hope you join us next time to learn more about how Dominion Energy is working toward a sustainable future while supporting our customers and communities. You can find links to all of our Actions Speak Louder programs on YouTube by searching Peggy Fox Actions Speak Louder playlist, or follow me on LinkedIn or Facebook. And many thanks to the staff here at Fairfax Public Access, where this is being recorded. Take care and be safe.